All right, we should be up. All right, at this time, we'll take some prayer requests. Anybody have any prayer requests at this time?
Molly is flying back from Seattle tonight, so just pray for safe travels, and especially with air traffic control and all of that.
Definitely. Any other prayer requests? Once, twice? Mark and them are coming back, I don't know, today, I think, from Portland. So we're going to pray for their safe trip as well. Jackie is recovering pretty well. She won't be here today. She hasn't been sleeping well. She's getting used to being one-armed and figuring that out. She had a pretty bad break. Surgery took a really long time, too, longer than what they had planned. So my guess is it was, according to John, John saw the x-rays and stuff, and he kind of works in that world a little bit. He said it looked like a pretty gnarly break. So it's a reminder to tie shoes and... That's what I thought too, but then I was told something different. I have no idea. I didn't see it. I saw the aftermath. So anyways, be careful out there. The ground is hard. It's hard. Any other prayer requests? Anybody? Nobody? All right, well, let's go to God in prayer, and then we will finish up our series on the talents. Let's pray together. And Father, we are so grateful to come together to learn about you and your will for us and your character and our place in our relationship with you. And God, I just pray that you help us to be open to hear your word. Maybe something that we've heard so often, but maybe we will catch something new today that we didn't think about before. God, we want to pray for travelers. We want to pray for Molly coming back from helping out her daughter in Seattle. We just pray for safety, for a smooth flight, that she just had a good time being up there, and we just pray for her return. We also pray for Mark and Janice as they drive back from Portland, that you keep them safe on the roads and help them to come back to us feeling rejuvenated after spending some time with friends, but also as they remember their friend who had passed away, that God, I just pray that you help them to grieve as well. God, again, we are grateful that you give us life and health, and we just pray for Jackie as she broke her arm, that you give her quick healing. We're thankful for the successful surgery, and we just pray that you continue to bless her on her recovery journey, God. We pray this all in your son's name. Amen. All right. I forgot to mention, Carl Mormon's a grandpa. Carl and Sandra are grandma and grandpa, and they're Shiloh, I believe is the name, granddaughter. And so just pray for Keith and his wife as they have a newborn. And when they go back to work from maternity leave, Carl told me Sandra is going to be spending a whole lot of time being with them. So just it's great to see life kind of moving that way. All right. We are in Matthew 25. We're going to read verse 18 and then 24 and 25. So if you could, I think we should just read 18 through 25. So if somebody would like to jump in and read that for me, that'd be great. There's microphones around. Matthew chapter 25, verses 18 through 24. Go for it.
18 to 24?
Yes, please.
But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used his money. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, "Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more." The master was full of praise. "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more." The master said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, So now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together." Then the servant with 1 bag of silver came and said, "Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here's your money back."
Okay. Third servant. So the first two get rewarded, right? They grew the money. They put it to work. That's what we learned about last week. It says at once they put the talents to work and they gained a profit from that, right? What does the last one say? What was his reasoning? What did he do? Okay.
Well, it was also, he was afraid of his master because he knew he was harsh and demanding.
He said, "I was afraid because you were harsh and demanding." Isn't it interesting that the other two don't mention any of that? That always blows my mind. The ones that put it together and did the work, maybe they did feel that way, but they don't say it. They don't go, "Because we were afraid that you were a harsh master, we knew that we had to gain some money. So we did this because we were afraid of being punished by you." They don't say that. They were just faithful and did the work. And the last guy goes, "I was afraid." So what does fear look like? What does fear do? How does it hide itself? I think in this case, fear looked like a few things for this guy. I'll say one, maybe you can give me more. Caution. I think fear looked like caution for this guy. What might be something else that fear was that hindered this guy moving forward?
There might have been a lot of indecision because I'm sure these guys, it wasn't like they weren't communicating what they were doing. So here's this guy like, oh, maybe I should do what they're doing. But then he's afraid of the master. So he's like, oh, what do I do? I'll just keep it safe. So he's takes whatever he considers the safest path rather than maybe following the example of others.
So he took the safe route, or caution, safety. What else? He didn't want to lose anything, so he buried it. Yes, Lori.
Fear looks like a blindfold because the guy was blind to his master's true character. The other two, they weren't filled with fear and they saw their master for who he was. And the master, even though the guy that had a lot did a lot, and the guy that had a little did a little, he rewarded him the same way. He praised them the exact same words. He gave them, and he said, "Come share your master's happiness." He wasn't like the guy that he gave less to. "Hey, you didn't get as much as the dude that I gave more to." He had a generous heart. He seemed very reasonable and generous. And the guy who was scared, he didn't see the truth of his master. It blinded him, and he filled in the blanks with scary stuff that weren't true.
Yeah, I think that's a good call right there. Sometimes when we have freedom to choose things, we can fill in a whole lot of thoughts that maybe aren't what was there. So sometimes it looks like, fear can look like being cautious. Sometimes it can even hide itself as humility, right? I think he was trying to be humble in this. I know who you are. I wanted to make sure that, I could have put it to work, but I could have lost something in there too. So instead of even risking it all, I knew that I can give you at least what you gave me back. In all of it, I think the fear just looks like unbelief. My faith is lacking, and I'm afraid to go out on a limb because of things like, in this case, failure, maybe rejection. There's definitely a risk of loss.
I was going to say, too, it's the master sort of validates his concerns, right? Because he immediately talks about you lazy and wicked servants. That certainly can come across as harsh, right? And he even says, though, but you knew this about me and you still did the wrong thing, So there's something to that. I don't exactly know what, but there's a nugget there of something.
Okay. Let's try. I'm gonna totally go into my other world for a minute. Let's try something, and not therapist, just being out of school. Any of you have any of your children ever come home and told you that the teacher doesn't like them? Anybody ever have that? Why'd you get this bad grade? Oh, my teacher doesn't like me. And then you have a meeting with the teacher, and the teacher just tells you that your kid's not turning in assignments. Or they do the work, but they don't turn the assignments in because somewhere along the line they're disorganized and they miss it. But in their mind, because they got a bad grade, it's, I have to do something like this. Oh, they don't like me. So could we see a view of somebody who keeps you accountable, that wants to see you be responsible, that has entrusted you with some things and want to see you make good choices, and they constantly are trying to tell you that you might see them as somebody who's harsh? You know, we just did a parable before this of the prodigal son, and I'm sure that younger son, I don't know because it's just a story and they don't tell us, but you don't usually want to leave a place that you feel really connected to and really good about. And so that father was probably telling him, hey, get back out in that field, keep working. Look at your brother's over there, he's still working. Get out there until this job's done. Why are you being lazy? Come on, get it together. Let's go. We're doing this together. And I think you probably get tired of being told, I need to keep working. Why are you so mean to me? You're telling me to work. You're telling me, no, I entrusted you with something great. And I want you to put in the work too. So fear stops us in our tracks a whole lot. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. This was our slogan as in youth group when I was a kid. And it says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, or depending on your version, timidity, but of power and love and self-discipline. So fear doesn't come from God. This is what I'm reading from Paul to Timothy. God didn't give us a spirit of fear. He didn't want us to be afraid. Instead, he gave us power, confidence. He gave us the ability to have self-control and love. So if fear doesn't come from God, where does it come from? And what is that person trying to do? Fear is a paralyzer. It is something that will get you stuck in your tracks. I used to do a lot of dumb things when I was a kid because I think I was missing part of my brain that told me I might get hurt. And I just didn't have that. So I just did things. But you know what? I never broke anything. And I think it's because I just went after it going, I'll probably be fine. I'll probably be fine. And when I'm coaching kids, I tell them, we are always going to be on the losing side of things if you go into every challenge afraid that you might get hurt, or afraid that you might mess up, or afraid that you might make a mess, that you're going to, I don't know, do something wrong, whatever it might be. When we have that as our root, you're always timid. You always pull back. And it keeps us from really doing some great things. How many of you have ever thought you wanted to do a job in your life and somebody told you that either it's not going to make money, or it's not a good idea, or you'll never be good at it? Anybody ever have one of those? No art majors in the room? I have some kids who are wanting to be artists in high school, and people keep telling them they can't do anything with it. I was like, no, you can do stuff with it. It's just a lot of hard work. So if you want to be an artist, just know that it's not just sitting around and drawing pictures. You got to do some hard work. It's a hard deal, but I believe in you. You can do this, but you got to do the hard work. We tell a lot of people they can't do things. Go ahead, Lori.
Listening to Mike and you, something I think I see something in this I see something in this parable that I've never seen before, but I don't know if I'm right. I think I am. That fear is also a window into the darkest depths of our hearts, because this guy was wicked and he was lazy, because he's blaming God or the master for his inactions. He's blaming the master. Well, it's because you're hard, because you're, this sort of thing. You get what you don't work for. And he's blaming God. And that's wicked. That's wicked. And he's lazy because he didn't fight through his weaknesses. And so it's what's in his heart. It's that caused him not to do it, not the fact that the master was harsh. And the master wasn't harsh. He gave him an assignment. He provided the materials. He just wanted him to do the job. And he picked a job that he was suited for based on the materials he gave them. And it is kind of wicked. He didn't do it. It's like if I provide all the materials for a fence being built, and I hire someone to build the fence, and I'm going to give them X amount of money, and I provided the materials, and they sat around and didn't do it because they're afraid that I'd be mad they did it wrong. And so it's my fault because I made them fearful. No, that is wicked and that is lazy. He could have at least, if I'm giving him $500 to build a fence that I provided all the material for, and you're scared you're not up to the task, you could hire someone for $300, get $200, and the job would be done. But no, the guy didn't do that. He didn't put it in the bank.
Yep.
So, yeah, spot on. Wicked and lazy, and it was his fear.
And it might not even be, just investing it like money-wise, but just putting something to work for good, right? And so I think your point is great. I think there are a few fear statements that really catch us more than others. And I think the first one is, I'm not good enough. Number one, you said 3 of these too, so it's kind of cool that you read there. One is, I'm not good enough. The other one is, I'm going to mess it up. And the last one is, somebody else could do it better. And, if who knows if these 3 guys are together all the time, but I'm pretty sure the one that just got the one talent has probably been looking at the other ones be successful the whole time, all the time, because they look like guys that know what they're doing. They put in the work, they try hard, and he's probably just sitting there stuck. And I think I'm going to use this analogy because he's talked about burying the money and bringing it back. Where the other 2 had faith, they planted their money and saw it grow. Where the one who didn't buried his money and pretty much let it die. And so if we are being faithful, we're planting things so it can grow. We're not just burying it, hoping that we can dig it up one day and it'll still remain, and that's just good enough for what we have. Charles Spurgeon said this. He said, faith and fear are opposites. If you have faith, your fears will vanish. If you have fear, your faith will fade. Fear will always bury what faith is meant to plant. And I think that is a huge statement. The more and more we're afraid to take leaps into where God's calling us, the more our faith in him will start to fade, because he's given us a spirit of power and love and self-control. The more we lean into the fear side of things, we're leaning into a different person. Okay, so let me open this with this question. When he says, Master, I knew you were a hard man, I don't think it was just fear that kept him in his tracks. I think it was also perspective. What do we think of this man and his relationship with the master? We talked about some of it, but let's lean into it more. What do you think? What do you think comes up the most? Go ahead, Tom. So what does that look like? If I put it away and pretend it doesn't exist and nobody else will notice it too? Is that one of those moves where I don't want to deal with the burden, so I'm just going to leave it here and hope that he'll be okay with that it's enough. Good enough. Good enough. What else? How might he have misunderstood his character? Lori or Corinne, and then Lori. Or Gil, whoever's up there.
It's me.
All right.
It just kind of makes me think of the workplace, where the person who always calls in sick and doesn't really do their job correctly or at all, they get mad at the boss when they're not really meeting expectations, and they think, oh, the boss is harsh. That's kind of what this makes me think. They have no desire to really improve.
Yeah. Lori.
I think I see some resentment. He resented that his master had authority over him and had a right to give him an assignment. And he resented the fact that he was a servant, that this was his calling to this man. And it's kind of like, well, you can't tell me what to do, like a little kid. And so, yeah, and I think he doesn't like his boss. He doesn't like his boss. He's coloring him worse than he is. His boss isn't bad. He has a servant. He's given him the material, and he said, "Do this."
It's really interesting. I think even in our conversation just now, we might have forgotten how much a talent is. It's 20 years worth of wages. So he's seeing a man as being harsh and demanding, but to me, that looks like generous. You're going to give me 20 years worth of my work for me to do something with it. And I think the other guys probably lived a whole lot better with their money because they're putting it to work, knowing that I can still use this money to make my life full, as well as gain something for my master, where he goes into the same life he's living, buries it, and is probably sitting in some bitterness that I have to work. But you were given 20 years of, I don't know. To me, it just feels like his fear to live into an expectation that he can do more than he believes he can was too much for him. And so have you ever thought, Corinne's analogy of being at work and someone giving you something to do and you're taking advantage of some flexibility there, only to find out later that you have deadlines to meet, and now you're upset that, these deadlines that's not fair. I need more time. Even though you had all the time to do them, you just decided that it wasn't that important in the moment. We start to see things differently when there's pressure applied to us, especially if we feel like we aren't the right people to do it. So now, on top of him seeing himself differently, I have to blame somebody for why I do what I do. And so instead of just taking accountability, he says, well, I knew that you are just not a great person. So I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose anything. I don't even know if the master would have been mad if he said, I really tried and I invested in all these different places. I looked into the best way to do this, and the market dropped a little bit, and I messed up, but I was really trying. I don't know what he would say. Maybe he would have said, I'm glad that you tried. I'm glad that you did something. Maybe if we let it sit in there a little bit longer, it'll grow back up. It'll be all right. But he didn't do anything. Who knows how long the master was gone for? I just can't imagine sitting on something and just going, in my backyard somewhere, there's 20 years worth of salary buried in my backyard. Nobody go back there. Don't touch it. I would be more scared that somebody would dig up my boss's money and steal it than I would have been losing it, investing it. But that's where he was at.
Yeah, it's funny because I started thinking, like, what if he had done something with it and lost it all? Like, what would have been the master's response? It's like, it makes me, I think going back to originally when you were talking about fear, I always think there's like degrees of fear, right? Because there is that fear that comes from, well, I really want to make sure I'm doing this right. And I think that's where, like, in the work situation, like Corinne was sharing, just like that's the whole idea of like getting advice or getting counsel from someone else. Hey, I'm not exactly sure what to do here. Do you have any recommendations? Like, he could have easily gone to the other two and said, hey, what should I do with this?
Yeah.
And they could have said, but because he's so trapped in his own fear and, just can't move from that. And I think that's what happens to us. You talked about how paralyzing fear is, and I think about how and then it's easy to turn around and then blame the others. Well, there wasn't enough information, or you didn't tell me what I should have done with this, or all those things. And I think it's easy then, and I've lived my life this way many times, is just blaming God. Well, God, I didn't know that's what I should have been doing, or I didn't understand that. And we can live that way so easily.
Yeah, my favorite biblical example of that is Cain and Abel.
Oh, yeah.
Cain and Abel were told nothing. But Abel gives God his best. You know, Hebrews talks about this great witness, a cloud of witnesses of faith, and they start going through people, and it says Abel gave his best, and even though he's gone, his words still live on today, right? Because of what he was able to do. Cain was mad because God blessed Abel, because Abel gave him his best. And God talks to him directly and says, why are you hanging your face? Why is your face downcast? If you just do what I ask you to do, I will bless you tremendously. And in all of that, direct conversation with God, knowing what he's supposed to do, knowing that he'll be blessed, his solution was to kill his brother. Because why try harder when I could just get rid of the competition? And it feels like for this guy, why try to put myself out there and mess up when I can just sit on it and pretend like it's fine? Yep. Laura, you had something? I saw a hand go up earlier, or you good?
Yeah, I didn't hear the most recent comment, but if the servant did his best with what the master, God, gave him, and he didn't do well, that's on God. You know, because he gave him according to what he believed or what he knew his abilities were. So if the guy did his best and didn't do well, that would be on the master, not the servant.
Sure.
And that would mean that maybe the master gave him more than he could handle, and for him to learn lessons. There's valuable lessons in failing. Sometimes you learn more from failing than when you succeed. So he just didn't trust the master's judgment, for one thing. And again, it'd be on the master if he wanted him to succeed and gave him more than his abilities. And God's not capable of not having good judgment. You know, so what he gives us, if we fail when we try our best, that's because we are meant to learn lessons about not succeeding the way we think it is.
I was reading this commentary on this, and I like what it says, so I'm just going to read just a couple sentences out of it. It says, when the servant buried his talent, he wasn't just hiding money, he was burying his calling. The single decision cut him off from the joy, growth, and partnership the faithful servants experienced. Inaction doesn't just delay fruitfulness, it deadens spiritual life. You can't fulfill your purpose while living in fear. And I think so much on that is we forget the other two might have been working together. They might have been growing things together, seeing things happen, working in unison, trying their best, watching it grow, celebrating in the fruitfulness of what they put together. And the other one decides to sit back and say, yeah, but just wait, they might lose it, and then what's going to happen? I'm just going to sit here. I'm doing the right thing by not doing anything. I'm just going to hang out. But in that, it cuts him off from all that. There is zero joy in waiting on that money. Everything he's doing is going, I hope this is enough. I hope that I got this right and that this is what he wanted me to do. I hope that he's not going to be so mad. I hope he just gives me a good, like, you did a great job burying that money. But what we see is he starts with the other guys. The one that he gave 10 earned 10 more, and he said, wow, great job. The one that had 5 and 5, wow, you did amazing. The other one, he goes, you lazy son of a gun. What did you do? You did nothing. And I could just see him probably shrinking there as they're getting all rewarded, knowing that he didn't do anything. And it's scary. And in that, he's starting to fulfill some things he was creating in himself. And I think this is how certain things happen that we see in Scripture, like when we're looking at Moses leading the people out of Egypt, and he does all these plagues, and there's a moment where Pharaoh gets it and says, yeah, get out of here, your God is strong. And then all of a sudden he gets hit with this rage of bitterness, and what does it say? God hardened his heart. And I don't think that's just like God picking out how he can harden people's hearts. I think he got to a point where I see you differently than I will ever see you. You did all these things to us. I don't see my play in any of it. I don't see that I was like torturing and oppressing all of your people, and I didn't see all your warnings anymore. Now I just see you as this awful thing, and I'm never gonna meet up to your needs, whatever it is. And in that, now Pharaoh, who might have had a chance because he's like, oh yeah, your God's pretty powerful. Yeah, get him out of here. Done. What was the other time where someone's heart got hardened? Do you remember anybody? I think there's another one in there. Saul. That was a big one. Saul was getting blessed by God over and over again. Then he decided, I don't need to listen to God anymore. I'm king. I do what I want. Don't touch all that stuff. I'm not only going to touch it, I'm going to just live in all of this pillage that I wasn't supposed to do. Even though God's weird in that. He's like, you can take all this other stuff, women, all this, but don't take this gold. Anyways, we're not going to get into that semantics. Ultimately, it's just God told him to do something he chose not to. And I think probably half the time when God's telling people you can do things and it doesn't make sense to us, God is trying to give us a way that we can still remain obedient in our like flawed selves. Like when they try to trap Jesus about divorce, he's like, well, Moses said we could do this. Well, that's cool, but that's not what God wanted us to do. But your hearts were hardened. So Moses gave you a way to do this in a way that could still please God somehow. Not what was intended for us. And I think that happens in our fear and in our way that we are approaching things. And we'll still see God as some hard-nosed tyrant because he expects me to change my life and follow him and be different, or allow him room inside of me to grow. And I think when we start to do these things, we really do not just bury the gifts that God is giving us, but we're burying our calling that he's called us to be and called us to do because we're afraid to take that step out. Hebrews 11:6 says this, without faith, it is impossible to please God. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. When you hear that, what does that mean to you? Yes, Thomas. Be loud, or give a microphone from Maurice so that people at home can hear you.
When I hear the word faith, I believe in obedience, because you got to be obedience to the Lord. And when you're obedience to him, everything else just falls into place.
What's the difference between being obedient and just belief?
Obedience implies action. Like you're doing something. Because belief, you can just sit at home and believe a lot of things. I can believe in UFOs. It doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it.
Okay. Go ahead, Tom. Yeah, and back then they didn't have it. But he still gave them, I mean, they had the law, but he still gave them people and things to say, this is where God's calling us to go. And now it's even better for us because not only do we get that laid out, and we get to see it from start to not finish because we're still here, right? The finish is coming. That's the next part. There's this thing that happens when we let fear dictate our decisions. We just stop participating in God's mission. And I think that's the part where we are probably more like the guy with one talent than we ever think we would like to admit. I mean, we always want to give him the hardest time ever. And we're like, yeah, what a jerk. He didn't do anything with it. But how often are we burying our talents all the time? Because we're afraid to actually let it loose and do something with it. And I think it's hard, but it's what it is. When you see and you're feeling yourself in, like, I've never been more connected to God ever. Usually it's because I'm doing what he told me to do, and I'm starting to see some great things that are coming from it. And then we take a dip because adversity hits, and we want to blame God for being mean and make me go through something or whatever, I don't know. And then we have a hard time. We're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but we're not doing it. And I think the other part of this story, and it goes with the last parable that we talked about too, and we're just going to hit it for the last 5 minutes. I think he had a hard time with comparison. I think comparison is a faith killer. If we start measuring our gifts against other people's gifts, we lose sight of what God is specifically calling us to do. And in this case, that guy got 10 and that guy got 5. Why am I only getting 1? If I'm only getting 1, then he just wants to make sure that this 1 comes back to him. And I must not be that good and they're great and blah, blah, blah. Who knows? We've seen people in our world do a whole lot with very little. We've also seen people do a lot with great things. We're given much and more things happen with it, right? But the goal wasn't how great of a treasure can you make for me. It was, what are you going to do with it? I'm entrusting you with something that's really you don't deserve. Regardless of how much you get, it's more than you deserve. And sometimes we might feel like in our own way when we're in worship, well, I don't sing in church because I don't sing as good as other people, so I'm just going to sit here and be quiet. Or I don't really like to, share in class or like try to do things because other people know the Bible more than me, so I'm just going to sit back here. And I don't really give as much because somebody else has more money, they're going to give more anyways. Or I don't really want to fill in the blank. There's a lot of things, right? Fear and comparison really puts us in a place where we forget that the calling that God gives us is very specific to us. It's very unique. The beginning of this story, what did it say? The kingdom of God's like this. Master is going away, and he entrusts his wealth to his servants, right? According to what? What did it say? According to their abilities or something like that? Or according to their, let's go back and look. Matthew 25. I think we started in 14 or 15. Let me pull it up. Okay. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be, this is verse 14, can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them, or talents, while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags, this is, not going with talents, just go with me on this, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. And then he left. If we're so busy comparing ourselves, we're missing out on the uniqueness of our mission and our journey that is just for us. Our journey isn't about trying to match up with other people are trying to do. God gave me something. He put people around me. He put me in a family, gave me a job, put me in an environment to multiply what he has blessed me with in some way. Invest in it. Fear in that will keep us from really seeing what happens. Okay. There's always this line. Maybe you've always, somebody's probably heard this. I like it. It's like a retread line that we use all the time. God doesn't call the qualified. He does what? He qualifies the called. When you go, he has something for you to do, and he will make it work for you. My last little biblical illustration going away from the talents is Moses. I love the story of Moses because we are all Moses at some point. We don't get a burning bush, but we get a calling from God some way or another in you. And Moses is the best excuse maker ever. Can't do it. Why would they listen to me? One, he's already feeling probably a way about himself. He just murdered somebody and ran away. I don't fit in. I was raised in a palace, not in the fields, laboring away. I'm not an Egyptian, but I'm also not a Hebrew. In my heart, I don't know what I'm supposed to be, even though I feel called to protect my people, but I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, fine. I'm not good enough. Okay, well, I'm God. I'll make you good enough. I kind of got a speech impediment. How are they going to listen? One, why would they listen to me? 2, how would they understand me? I gave you your tongue. I'll give you the words. Come on. I'm God. We do this, right? The master could have told that besides you're being lazy and whatever with the talents, he could have just said, I know your abilities. I gave you this knowing that you can do this. I trusted you because I believe in you. You don't believe in me. You don't believe in yourself. Now I'm going to take everything that you had. I'm going to give it to the guys who actually put it to work. Does that scare you? That's the line for next week. But think about that one. What the master ends up doing, and we're going to have this conversation because we're almost up against it, is the punishment for that guy who didn't do anything with it is, you're not going to do anything with it. I'm going to take it away and I'm going to give it to the person who's going to do something with it. Now you're going to know what it means to not do anything. I wonder if that's what the other two guys were doing by showing how they are growing things, and he needed the master to really step down hard and say, you had everything lined up for you to be successful, and you still chose not to. And those are hard conversations, and we'll talk about that next week. And some of us in here might have had those conversations with people, and the hardest ones is when it's family. Why do you keep making these mistakes? You have everybody here to help you, and you still can't get out of your way. What do you need? And at some point, the natural consequence is you might lose everything. Some people in my family, they lost a whole lot of stuff and were in jail a whole lot of time because they couldn't figure it out. And certain people who want to keep helping you are tired of you stealing from them. So then they cut you off because they're like, can't support you anymore. You got to figure it out. And I think we have those conversations. It's not that they weren't supported, but at some point, whatever is causing you to lean against the directions that you were given to be successful and to take your own path because of fear or because of pride or because of whatever bitterness, the consequences that come with that, God is just. He doesn't just go, keep living and do whatever you want and I'm going to forgive you. I mean, he'll forgive you, but we're working with him. God isn't just enabling us to, okay, yeah, just keep messing up. Come back and keep messing up. At some point, your heart continues to harden, and you don't get to see him continually picking you up. You resent him for reaching his hand out. You resent, because what does that require? I have to change in order to be in the presence of God. God lifts me up. He's not saying, come here and embrace me and continue to live and slap me in the face over and over again. What did he tell if we look at all the prophet stories, you continue to cheat against me with other gods, and there are some consequences. And those people get some harsh consequences. But he always saves a remnant. The other ones, the consequence is harsh. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that when I get discouraged, George has told me about this particular verse in 1 John. He said, if our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. Dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God.
Yes.
That's really
Yeah. And on top of it, I mean, one of the other memory verses we all have was nothing can separate us from the wonderful love of God. Height nor death, nor principalities, nor things evil, or things that are good, or things that have even yet to come. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. But you know what can? Us. We are the only ones. There is nothing else that can come into your world that is strong enough to get in the way of God's love for you, except for you turning your back on God. That's it. I mean, that is the one true thing that will keep us from God. All right, last statement, then we gotta.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Back to that question you asked earlier too. I gave it some thought. When I hear the word faith, I also hear the word trust, because we're supposed to trust in the Lord too, along with obedience. But sometimes when we gotta trust in God, to me is the hardest thing, because especially if you're doing things His way, because you don't ever see what He sees. So that's why you have to trust Him, and that's why you have to have faith.
Yep. A lot of times we might not, in our faith, we might not even see the results. It might come later. And I think sometimes that's we're just impatient, and that's really hard. Um, faith, obedience, but there's joy in it. And I think that was the part that we lose sight of, because when we think about it being a grind and oh, we're going to lose out and oh, we're going to miss all these things, we forget that when we lean into the calling that God has for us, there's joy in that. We have joy with each other. We have joy in the increase. We have joy even in our suffering because we have each other. There is a joy of following what God has for us, because his promises don't go void either. They just might not come when we want them to, but they do come when we need it. And I think that part is something that we should, have solace to. When our heart doesn't condemn us, we can put ourselves before the Lord. Now, there's going to be times when some need that reminder, and we need to chisel out that heart a little bit more because it's starting to get a little hard. And I think that's where adversity like this might come. It'd be cool at the end of the story, then, the master comes back later and says, the man learned his lesson. And the next time he only gave him half a talent and he grew it to 15. But we don't get that because that's not how God works. He wants us to see that there is some ramifications of what we do. And God is a jealous God. And God is a, whatever, you fill in the blanks. He's not all just like, hey, come ride this rainbow and butterfly life with me. Life is hard. Our relationship with God is a challenge because it requires something out of us that we don't see in ourselves often. But God does. That's why he's given us what we have according to our abilities. Okay, we'll carry this next week. We have one more left in this, and then we'll start one more, and then Mike is taking over at the end of November. All right, cool. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week. Thanks, everybody at home. If you have prayer requests and you came late, fill out a green card. We will pray for you before we leave. Bye, Gil. Bye, Corinne.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Happy Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.
Doot, doot.